Hey, what's going on, guys? So I got a lot of requests when I asked last week what you guys wanted to see. A lot of you guys said Vue and Laravel, so I'm guessing that you want to know how to build a Vue.js front end to a Laravel backend, which is pretty easy because Vue comes basically by default with Laravel. You just have to do a few things to set it up. Alright, so in this video what we're going to do is take the API that we built in this video about a month ago called Laravel 5.5 API from scratch using resources, where we basically created a REST API for articles, and we can create, read, update, and delete articles through that API. So what we're going to do in this video is build a Vue.js front end. Alright, so I'm not going to go through everything. If you want to, you can watch this video and build the back end, or you could just clone it from the repository, which I'll put in the description. I'll have a repository for just the API and then a repository for the full app that I'm building now. All right, and if you do clone it, you just want to clone this link here or download it and just install the Laravel dependencies. Go ahead and do the migration. Of course, you'll need to connect your database parameters into your .env file, and then you can add the seed data if you want. If you want to add some sample articles, I think there's like 30 of them, and you may need to just generate an encryption key if this is empty, which it probably will be. All right, and then you'll be at the point that I'm at now. All right, so I have it up and running on a virtual host at larticlesapp.test. And the landing page is just the regular Laravel landing page. But if I go to API/articles, you can see that it's outputting 15 articles. We have it set to 15 per page. And it's using the API resources, which is really cool because it gives us all of our data, but it also gives us extra stuff like links for pagination. And we're actually going to add some pagination in this app, which is something that I don't usually do because I friggin' hate it. I hate doing pagination, but it's requested a lot, so I'm sure a lot of you guys will appreciate that. But using the API resources really makes pagination easy. And we're not going to use a Vue component or anything like that. We're going to do it all from scratch. All right, so that's what we'll be building. To show you the finished product real quick, let me just go to, let's see, I think it's http larticles.test. So this is what we'll be building. This is the Vue.js front end, and we're showing 5 articles at a time, and we have our pagination right here. You can see previous is disabled. If I go to next, you can see previous is now not disabled. This will show the next 5, the next 5, and we have 6 pages. Once we get on the last page, this is disabled. So really nice pagination. All right, and of course we can add an article. We'll say test 2, and we can add it just as article added, and there it is. We can delete, article removed, and we can edit. We'll just say test and the number 1, save, article updated, and you can see that updates. All right, so that's what we'll be building. We're using Bootstrap 4 for the UI. So hopefully you guys enjoy this, and let's get started. All right, guys, so I am at the point where we were at the end of that first video where we built the back end, where we built the API. So now we want to implement Vue.js on the front end. All right, now if you notice over here in the Laravel files, there's a package.json file. It has a bunch of scripts, but if we look at the dependencies, you can see Vue.js is one of them. So we have Vue, we have Lodash, Axios, which is an Ajax library. Laravel Mix is going to take care of building and compiling our JavaScript. So we want to go ahead and install all of these dependencies. And the first step is to do an npm install. Okay, and that will create a node modules folder with all of these dependencies in there. Okay, and then once that's done, we're going to run the watch script, which will have Laravel Mix constantly watch and build our files for us. All right, so now that that's done, let's clear this up and let's just do npm run watch. And that'll take up your console and it'll constantly watch everything for us. Okay, and you may get this little message here that says build successful. Okay, so we're going to leave this running. I'll just make that a little smaller. And then we're going to go into resources and then assets, JS, and then that's where our Vue application is. So the app.js file, this is our main Vue file. You can see we're initializing Vue.js. It's looking for an element with the ID of app, which we're going to have to create in our template. Okay, it's also bringing in this example component, which is in this components folder right here. And it's nothing really. It just says I'm an example component. We're not going to be using this, but that's what they give you as a boilerplate. All right. Now, as it is, we're just seeing the standard Laravel landing page, and we want to change that. So where this is located is in the views, and then the welcome.blade. Okay, so this is basically our index file, and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of clear most of this stuff out. Let's change the title here. We'll just say L articles app, and let's see, we're going to get rid of all of these inline styles. So just that whole style tag, we don't want that. And then we're going to get rid of everything that's in the body. All right, so you should just have a clear body like that. And let's just put in test and save and make sure that that works. So if I reload, we just see test. Now, if we want to use Vue, it's going to look for a div with the ID of app. So we want to put that in here. So we'll get rid of this test and we'll put an ID of app. And then in here, we can put any Vue components that we want. So we're going to have an articles component. So we're going to say articles. We're just going to put in like a custom tag like that. And you know what? Let's actually wrap that in a Bootstrap container. Let's see, we'll put that down and we'll bring this up here. All right, so we'll save that. Now, that's not going to show us anything because we haven't actually created the articles component. So let's go into components, create a new file called articles.vue. And in here, we're going to put in our template. And let's just put a div, and then we'll put an h2. And we'll say articles. Okay, so we'll save that. Now it's still not going to show up if I reload because we need to go to our app.js, which is our main Vue file, and bring it in. So you can see they brought in this example component. We're not going to use that, so we're going to bring in articles from articles.vue, and if we save that, we're still not going to see it because we haven't brought in this main app.js file into our welcome.blade. So let's go down to the right above the ending body tag here, and let's put in a script tag. So we'll say script source, and we're going to use this asset helper. We'll put in double curly braces and say asset, and it's going to be js/app.js, and save, reload, and there we go. And if we open up our console, you're going to see this scrf token not found. So if you're going to use the Vue front end, you need to add this to your head area. So we're going to go up here and we're going to add a new meta tag, we're going to say meta name, and set this to csrf-token, and this just protects against cross-site forgeries. We're going to set the content to, oops, that should be in here. I'm going to set the content to csrf_token. We're going to set it to that function, and then we need to add one more line, which will be a script tag. And inside the script tag, we're going to say window.laravel, and we're going to set that equal to an object, which will be csrf token, and we're going to set that to csrf_token, like that. So that should get rid of that error. If we save that and reload, now we don't see that error anymore. Okay, so now we're ready to start working with Vue. Now, as far as Bootstrap, I'm not going to use Sass or anything. I'm just going to get the Bootstrap Cdn. So let's go to getbootstrap.com, go to get started, and I'm just going to grab this and put it up here, and then grab the 3 JavaScript files we need and put those down here right above our app.js. Alright, Prettier is not working inside of the blade template for some reason. Okay, so that should, there we go. So now we're using Bootstrap. So we have our articles component, which has nothing in it yet. Before we get to that, I just want to create a Navbar component. So we're going to say inside of our components folder, new file, navbar.vue. And in here, this is actually going to be very simple. We're not even going to have any links. It's just really for show. So let's say nav. Let's give it a class of navbar. And I'm using Emmet, by the way. We'll say navbar dash expand dash sm. Let's say navbar dash dark. And let's give it a class of bg-info, which will make it blue, and then a class of mb-2 to give it some margin bottom. All right, and then we'll put a container inside of it, and then just our brand. So an A tag with the class of navbar-brand, and we'll go ahead and put in here L articles. All right, so we have our navbar. Now we can go to our blade template, basically our index file, and I'm going to put it right above the container here. So right here we'll say navbar, like that. Let's just tab this over. Alright, so if I reload that, we're not seeing anything. It says unknown custom element navbar, did you register the component? So we're going to have to just bring that into app.js, just like we did with articles. So we'll say navbar, that. Okay, Laravel mix, build successful. Let's see, we're still not, what did I do wrong here? Clear the cache maybe? Yeah, I did control F5, clear the cache. So now we have our navbar, and that's all we need for that file. We can close that up, and now we're pretty much going to work in our articles the whole time. Now if we look at our API data, so if we go to larticles app.test/API/articles, we get 15 per page, and I want to change that to 5. So we're actually just going to edit inside the Laravel file. If we go to our app HTTP controllers and then article controller, you can see I did this in the last video. We did paginate 15. I'm going to change it to paginate 5. And then I also want to just change the ordering so that the most recent is first. Okay, so we can do that by just going right here and saying order by, it should be an uppercase B. So order by created underscore at, and we want it descending, so we want to do DESC, and then we just want to then do paginate. Alright, so if I save that, we go to our API and reload, now you can see we're getting 5 per page. So that's what I want. So that's all we need to do here. We can close that up. And now we're going to go into our articles.vue file. Now under the template, we're going to put our script tag. This is where all of our component JavaScript is going to go. We want to export default. And this is not an intro to Vue.js video. I do have a Vue.js in 60 minutes video if you want to watch that. That'll explain everything. I'm just going to assume that you know at least a little about Vue.js. Basically, in our data, we want to return our state. Okay, so we're going to have articles, which is going to be an empty array to start with. We're going to have article, which is going to represent a single article, which is an object. That'll have an ID, blank to start with, title, and body. Okay, in addition to that, we're going to have an article underscore ID set to nothing. Just move that on the next line. Whoops. And the reason we have this is because when we do our update, if we do a put request to our API, we actually have to send this field with it for it to be a put. Because if we look at routes, api.php, this is all stuff we did in that first video. The put request also goes to the store method, okay, along with the post request. They both go to the same method. We don't pass the ID with the URL, so what we pass is that article underscore ID field. That's how it's going to know that that's how it's going to know which article to update. Okay, so in addition to that, we want pagination, which is going to be an object, and we also want edit, which is our edit state will be false by default because we're going to be using the same form to add and edit. So that's our data. All right, now we want to fetch our articles, so we're going to go directly under data. I'm going to put a comma right here, and we're going to use the created method, which will run automatically when the page loads. And when it loads, we want to run a method called fetch articles. Okay, so it's going to run this method. Now this method has to be defined inside of methods. So we'll say right here, fetch articles. And this is where we actually want to make our call. Now, as far as making our request, we're going to use the fetch API. So in here, we'll say fetch, and we put in our URL, which will be API/articles. And then we'll do our first dot then. Let's put this on a new line. And with the fetch API, we have to do one dot then, which will give us the response, but that's not going to give us the data. We want to say that we want to map that to JSON. And then we do another dot then, and that gives us the actual data. Okay. And I'm actually going to change this to res, because what it gives us is this. And if we look at this, it's not just an array of data, it's an object. And this object has inside of it an array called data. So to access the actual articles, we have to access res.data. In addition to that, we can get links. Okay, res.links will give us the pagination links, and then res.meta will give us like the last page, current page, total, things like that. So what we want to do here, or all I'm going to do here, is console.log res.data, like that. All right, now this should run automatically because we have it inside of created. So let's save that and go back and reload the page, and then down here you can see we're getting all 5 articles. Okay, remember we're using 5 per page, so that's what it's going to give us. We're going to add the pagination later, so don't worry about that. So we need this to output onto our page, right? So we want to assign the articles that are coming in to this articles array right here. So to do that, we can simply say this dot articles equals res dot data, right? And then we'll go up here into our view, into our template, and we're going to put these, let's see, we're going to put these inside of cards, Bootstrap cards. So let's see, we're going to use a div here, and we want to basically just loop through the articles. So to do that, we need to use a v-for directive. So v-for, and we're going to say for article in articles, like that. For v-for. Now we have this error here because it's saying that it expects a v-bind key. So that's kind of like in React, it does the same thing. You want to have a unique value as a key. So we're also going to add here v-bind, and we want to bind a key of a unique value. So our unique value will be article.id, like that. All right, and for this div that we just created, I want to also add a couple classes, one of card and one of card body, so that each article is wrapped in a Bootstrap card, which is basically just a border, some padding, stuff like that. All right, and then in our h3 here, we'll put the title. So we'll say article.title, and then in a paragraph, we'll put article.body. So let's save that, and let's reload. And there we go, we get our 5 articles. Now I don't want these squished together, so I'm also going to add a class here of mb2, margin bottom 2. So now there's some space in between. Now for the pagination, it's going to be a little difficult. It's kind of hard, but I'll try to explain it the best I can. Basically, if we look at our API response, we have the page for first. Okay, so this would be the first page, articles, and then a parameter of page equals 1. That we have the last page, which would be 6, and then we have the previous page, which would be 2. All right, so I'm sorry, the next page would be 2. So we need to get those values, and we need to use those inside of our fetch instead of just fetching from this. So what will happen is we'll have a parameter here called page_URL, and then right here we're going to say page_URL is going to be equal to the page URL if there is one, or it's just going to be equal to /API/articles. And then instead of putting this inside the fetch, we're going to put our page URL. Okay, and there are components to do pagination, but I figured that doing it, custom would be a better option, and show you guys how to do it. All right, so once we get that page URL, we're going to have another function called make pagination. Okay, so I want to call this .make pagination, but we need to kind of assign a different variable for this. So we're going to use VM. We're going to say let VM equals this, like that. And then down here inside of our response, our promise response, we can then say VM.make pagination, and we want to pass in here both the links. Okay, if you look at our response, the links and the meta. Okay, and we're getting that from this res. So we're going to say res.meta and res.links. Okay, so we're going to pass those into the make pagination. We should probably add a catch on to this as well, just in case there's an error. Like that. All right, so now what we want to do is create our make pagination function or method, and that's going to go right under the fetch articles. Okay, so make pagination takes in the meta and the links, and then what we'll do is say let pagination equals, we're going to create an object here made up of this stuff that's passed back to us, like the current page, the last page, and all that. So let's say current page, we'll set that to meta.current page, because if we look in right here, where's let's see, where's meta? Right here. So we have meta current page, which right now is 1. So we're assigning that. We also want the last page, which we can also get from that meta object. So meta dot last page. We also want the next page URL, and that comes from the links. So links dot next, and then we also want, oops, we also want the previous page URL. So prev page URL also comes from links, and that's .prev. And we can clearly see that right here, prev next. All right, so now that we have that object, we're going to set that to this pagination value right here. So we'll simply say this dot pagination equals pagination. So that's it. That's all we need for our make pagination. So I'll go ahead and save that. We should still work. Shouldn't see any errors or anything. Good. Now we need to display it. We need to display our pagination. So we're going to go back up to our template, and I want to put the pagination above the articles. So I'm going to go right above the card right here. And we're going to put this, actually, you know what we'll do is just go to Get Bootstrap. And let's go to Components, Pagination, and yeah, I'm going to grab this. And let's put this here. Okay, now I'm not going to do the 1, 2, 3 and all that in between. Instead, in between, it's going to say like 1 of 6, 2 of 6, and so on. But for now, I'm going to just get rid of the 1, 2, and 3 and just have the previous and the next. And then we have some directives we have to add to this stuff. All right, so for this previous li, we're going to bind a class to it. Okay, so we're going to say v-bind, and we want to bind a class, and we're going to set this to some brackets, and in here we want to say disabled, because we want it to be disabled if there's no previous page. So we'll say disabled if not, and then we're going to use that pagination object, which has a previous underscore page underscore URL value. Let's see, why does it look like that? Disable. Oh, I gotta put quotes around this. Like that. All right, so hopefully you can see what's going on here. We want this to be disabled if there's no previous page URL, which is going to come from down here, previous page URL. All right, and then we also want, let's see, if we click on the previous, we want it to fetch articles, but we want to pass in the previous page URL. So I'm going to go, let's see, we actually want to put this on the A tag on the inside. So let's go right here and let's say @click equals, and we want to call fetch articles, and then we'll pass in here the pagination object, and then we want the previous page URL. Okay, but it will be disabled if there is no previous page URL. So let's just save this and see what we get. Okay, so you can see that it is disabled, and that's good because we're on the first page. So now let's work on the next. So same thing here, we want it disabled if there's no next page URL. So I'm going to grab this and put that right here, except we're going to say disabled if there's no next page URL. And we also want the click, we want this click event. We're going to put that in the A tag right here. Get a quote in there, and then we're going to change this to next page URL. All right, and we're passing this in as this right here, page URL. So let's see what happens if we try it. So we'll reload, and if we click next, there we go. So this is the next page, and now you can see previous works. If I go back, it doesn't. If I keep going, we get to the last page, it doesn't, we can't go anymore. All right, so we're just about there. Now we just want that middle part that says what page we're on. So I'm going to go back up to the pagination and go in the middle of the previous and the next. And let's put another li, so I'll just grab like one of these and put that in here. We want the page item, we want it disabled, so it has a class of it's always going to be disabled, it's not a link. And then I'm also going to change the text to dark. Bootstrap has a text dark class we can use. And then inside here, instead of the number 2, we're going to say page. And then remember, from the pagination object, we can get the current page. Okay, we set it up so we can get the current page, and then we're going to say of, and then also from the pagination we can get the last page. Alright, so let's save that and let's take a look, and there we go, 1 of 6, 2 of 6. Alright, so our pagination is now complete, and I know it's a lot of steps, but it's nice to have pagination in case you have, you know, a ton of articles. Alright, so now that that's done, let's do the next easiest thing, which is probably the delete. Alright, so we'll go ahead and we'll go up here into our card. Okay, so our recurring cards, and under the paragraph let's put an HR, and then we're going to have a button. So let's see, we'll give this button a class of btn danger to make it red, and it's going to be a delete button. Alright, we're going to add a click event to this, so we'll say click, oops, not client, click equals, and we're going to set this to delete article, and we're going to pass in the article.id, and then we'll go down to our methods. We'll go under the make pagination, which ends here. We'll say delete article. Whoops, we want to say delete article. Actually, yeah, that was right. And it's going to take in an ID. So we want to make a delete request to our API. Alright, but before we do that, let's just do a confirm since it's a delete. So we'll say if confirm, are you sure? And then we're going to go ahead and make our request. So we'll say fetch, and we're going to pass in here. I'm actually going to use backticks. I'm going to use a template string because we want to do API/article. Okay, singular, and then the ID, like that. Okay, and then we're going to pass in a second parameter of an object, and we're going to say the method is going to be delete, and let's do .then, and it's going to give us the article back. So let's say res.json. And we'll do a dot catch as well if something goes wrong. Alright, now inside this dot then, all I really want to do here is just do an alert and just say article removed. And then we just want to call fetch articles again. So this dot fetch articles, first page obviously, so we don't pass anything in, and that should do it. So let's save, let's reload, and now if I click delete, are you sure? Okay, article removed, and you can see it goes away. Alright, so that's done. Now let's do the add form. It's actually going to be the add and edit form. So we're going to create this right below the H2. We'll put in a form here. It doesn't need an action. And let's see, inside here we'll put a form group, which is just a Bootstrap class. We'll put input, and let's give this a class of form control, and let's give it a placeholder of title. And we want to now map this or bind this input to this right here, the article title. So to do that, we use vModel. So v-model, and we're going to set that to article.title. And if you're familiar with Angular and not Vue or Angular 2+, this is like ng model. Okay, and then let's see, we'll go ahead and just copy this, paste it in again, and this is going to be the body, but it's going to be a text area, so I'm going to just replace this with text area, and of course that needs an ending tag. Placeholder will say body, and then vModel is going to be article.body. Alright, and then finally we need a submit, so we're going to say button. Let's give it a type of submit, and let's say save. I'm also going to give it a class of btn and btn-light, and let's also do btn-block. Alright, so let's see if that shows up. Okay, there's our form. Let's move this stuff down a little bit. So for our form, let's give it a class of MB, we'll do MB3, and then we also need to add a submit event to this. So we'll say submit, and then we're going to do submit prevent because we want to prevent it from actually submitting to a file or anything. So submit prevent, and then we're going to call add article. Alright, so down here in our methods, let's go below delete article, and then this is actually going to handle the add and update. So remember we had that state value of edit, which is false by default. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if, let's do if this dot edit is equal to false, then we want to add, else we want to update. Okay, so we want to deal with the add. So let's say fetch, actually let's get rid of that. So fetch API/article is our endpoint, and we want to pass in some options. Method is going to be post, we're making a post request, and then the body, we want to wrap this in JSON.stringify because we want this to be a JSON string, and we're just going to pass in this .article, which has the ID, the title, and the body. Okay, now we also have to add headers, and we have to add the content type. So we're going to say content dash type is going to be application slash JSON. Alright, and then we'll go down here and we'll do our .then. Okay, we'll take our response, res.json, do another .then, and our .catch. Okay, so inside the then here, let's take the data, and I want to clear the form, so we'll say this.article.title equals nothing, and this excuse me, article.body equals nothing, and then we'll do alert. You don't have to do these alerts if you don't want to. They are kind of ugly, but I just want some kind of notification, and I don't feel like getting into flash messages. And then we just want to fetch our articles again. Alright, so let's try that out. So we'll say test article added, and there it is. Cool. So now last thing to do is the edit. So what I'm going to do is put another button right above the delete. So we'll take the delete button here and we'll just copy it up, and let's change the click. Whoops. We'll change the click to edit article, and we want to just pass in the entire article, not just the ID. We'll change the text to edit, and we'll change the class to btn warning, which will make it yellow. Alright, so the edit article is basically just going to, it's going to change this value to true, and it's also going to add everything to this, okay, this article object. So let's go down here after edit add article. It's not going to do the actual update. The update happens here, but it's going to just basically set us up for the update. It's going to input the stuff into the form and so on. All right, so let's do edit article. Actually, yeah, this is fine, I guess. So edit article takes in the entire article, and then we're going to set this dot edit to true. We're going to set the article, this dot article dot ID to the article being passed in ID. And then remember what I said, when we do the update, we have an article underscore ID field that will also get set to the article ID that's being passed in. And the title, whoops, and the body. Okay, and that should do it. So now if we save this and we go back, and actually let's add some margin bottom right here to the edit button. So if I click edit, you can see it goes right into the form. Good. Now when we save, it's going to now call, it's going to run this code, because this edit is now true. So it's not going to run this, it's going to run whatever we put in here. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, I'm going to copy all of this fetch, and put that here, except we're going to do put. It's going to be a put request, and for the body, that's going to stay the same. It's just going to be all of this stuff, including the article underscore ID, which is needed for an update. All right, and then let's see, we have our headers, we need that. Down here, we'll just change the message to updated, and that should be good. All right, so let's try it. So we'll reload, we'll say test article edit, let's say test article updated, and save. Article updated, okay, and you can see now it's updated. Alright, so we now have a complete CRUD application with pagination in Vue.js using Laravel as a backend. Alright, so whenever you're going to edit this, just make sure you run your watch script. We can just now stop it with Control-C, and that's our application. Alright, and maybe I'll go through a deployment with this in a separate video. Laravel is pretty easy to deploy compared to like Node.js and some other languages and frameworks and technologies. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time. Hey guys, if you've been watching my videos for a while and you really like what I do and I've helped you out a lot, consider becoming a patron. Even for $1 per month, it pushes me to keep bringing you guys the best content I possibly can. There's reward tiers for discounts, free Udemy courses, personal support, and more. So check out the Patreon link in the description below for more info.